I win as Jimmy Swagger. Nobody really got the reference. That's
just
right.
in case
Byron refuses to dress up because he doesn't believe in Halloween.
Just in case you didn't get enough football on Saturday, we're here to bring you more.
Send us your best Halloween costume.
It's our Sunday morning tailgate show presented by
10
ESPN Radio.
There's still the folks who are about a year late doing Tiger King, but there's what's the most? Maybe you haven't seen a creative.
All right, good Sunday morning, everybody. Welcome in. It's the Justin Kinner Show with... No, it's not the Justin Kinner Show. What the heck's wrong with me? What is wrong with me? Let me make sure our mics are all set here. You can tell it's been one of them.
First day of the week. Restart.
Holy moly, fumble.
Call audible.
So let's reset. I knew as I was saying that, something didn't sound right. So no, it's the Sunday morning tailgate show with Keith Byars and Justin Kinner, College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byars, and fresh from being recognized last night at the shoe and, well, watching the Buckeyes kick some ass against Penn State. We got Keith Byars with us here this Sunday morning. Keith, good morning. How are you? Congratulations last night. That was so cool. Got to sit around with some friends watching the game, and everyone's like, hey, we know who that is right there. That's Keith Byars.
We know that
was
rascal.
So cool. That was cool.
It was very cool. It was very emotional. A lot of memories. Gut memories come back, and that place is always special to me. Every time I ride by it in the car, whether it's in March or April or at a football game in the fall, it's special. And then being inside on a football Saturday, big game last night, against Penn State, and having an opportunity to be honored for going into the Hall of Fame, and when you're on that field. You always get goosebumps. It's just like it's so excitement. You come back and you're 18, 19, 20 years old all over again. And, for the fans that was there, they gave me respect, they acknowledged me. Some that never saw me play, and many who did, see me play. And that was awesome. And, for me to get a chance to say thank you to the fans and, tip of the hat, because they are that 12th man on the field. They're that extra shot of adrenaline you need when things are not going so well. And then when things are going good, they make you go even better. And to just stand there on the field and look around the stadium, and just a flood of memories, came back. My parents are gone to heaven now, and I could see them in the stands. I just immediately, my eye focus went, that's where they sit at. And
That's
I could just see them,
That's really cool.
them and my family and brothers and sisters. And, it was special. And my kids, they've grown. They weren't born when I played. I was a college kid. But, they called me last night, and it was special to them. So.
Now, what was your day like yesterday? Walk us through your day yesterday. I mean, what was the plan? I mean, you had Archie Griffin, who was able to, present you that, which was even more
childhood
special.
hero.
Yeah. But walk us through your day. I mean, you're seeing a lot of old familiar faces, and, you have your wife, you have your family with you. I mean, what was that like? Because, again, you got to experience, you said it was just a flood of memories that come back to you. But to experience that, walk us through your day. You get to the shoe. I mean, what was your day today like yesterday?
I didn't get there early enough, unfortunately, but I did get there in time. But Ohio State is full of tradition. It's a lot of tradition at Ohio State. And so now that I'm a former player and I get to be a fan and get to come back and watch, from the stand. So one of my traditions is whenever we get to the game, we go to Buckeye Grove.
Yep.
And my wife was like, I don't know if we're going to have time because it's going to be raining. And I'm like, honey, I'm going to Buckeye Grove. And if you guys that don't know what Buckeye Grove is the Buckeye tree, the grove of Buckeye trees. It's on the south end of the stadium. And when you make first team All-American on the football team, they plant a tree in your honor. And so it's a bunch of trees, and they got a plaque next to your tree. So you got trees going back to Ohio State's first All-American, Chick Harley, back in the 1920s until our most recent All-American, this past year. So that is special. So you have a tree dedication while you're still in college, and it means so much more after college. So that's what I did. I went to Buckeye Grove to see my tree, and the tree right across from mine is my college roommate and best friend, Pepper Johnson. So that's always cool. So we get to see each other's Buckeye trees, and I was going to just check on the growth on it, take a picture by the tree, and that's great. And then I get into the stadium and love to see the band. coming to the stadium. I didn't get to see that as a player. I was in the locker room getting ready for battle, but that's part of my tradition in pregame. I can see a lot of fans shake hands. Hey, how you doing? Oh, let me look at my watch. I got to get in the stadium to watch the band come in, and so that's always important to do. And then friendly Joe during the game. But, I mean, before snap, but every time the ball snaps, I can't talk to nobody. I was fortunate to sit in the suite yesterday, and even people in the suite are like, okay, let's watch the game. We could talk at TV timeouts and things of that nature at halftime. But that's cool. So I really enjoy the game.
Watching a Buckeye game, it's like, yes, you are KB until the snap. And then it's like you tense up. I watch you sit up in your chair, like it's a whole other demeanor when there's live action going on. But yeah, I mean, but that was pretty special yesterday. And again, I mean, in the atmosphere, I've only been to one night game at the Shoe, and there's nothing like it. I don't care that they were playing Akron. I was like, I wasn't there to see who they were playing. I mean, it's an experience.
I had my Scarlet on last night.
Yeah,
Scarlet out. Scarlet the Shoe.
So we're sitting up in C deck about a month ago. I can't imagine what that feeling. I mean, you've played in front of thousands and thousands of fans before you played in the NFL, so it's nothing. It's not a new feeling. But to walk out at night under the lights, Scarlet out last night and everything like that. I mean, what was just that like? I mean, you're just kind of taking it all in. I thought that was really special when you said you looked over where your parents always sat. I didn't even think of that last night for you, but that had to be a special moment too.
Oh, very, very. I mean, we didn't have Scarlet the Shoe and whiteouts and all that stuff when I was in school. It was just, hey, support your team. And the stadium when I was there was 90,000. They've expanded to over 100,000 now. So to have 100,000 people clapping for you, that's overwhelming. It really is. It's really sometimes hard to put into words. I got goosebumps. I mean, I was just, the hair on my back of my neck was standing, just like, oh man, I remember this is what you live for. Not to someday be going into the Hall of Fame and being honored on the field. It's just that you're the love of the game of football.
Is it safe to say what you felt last night? It's going to be special in December, at the induction ceremony. But in the time I've known you, I felt like in our conversations about this, not that you're not excited about December. I know you are, but it felt like you were itching to get out onto into the Shoe. You were to walk on the field in front of the Buckeye fans, because that's the vibe I got. Not that you're not excited about December, but last night was really what you were waiting for from the beginning.
Yeah, December is going to be special because everything is still preliminary. Yep. It's like compared to when you're the president, getting voted president of the United States. On election night is awesome, and when they pronounce you the winner. But then you have to wait another 6-8 weeks for the inauguration for it to be officially when you actually take office into the thing. So that's what it felt like last night. It was like the election night, all the rush of adrenaline. I mean, even though I know I was in, you want to be in with with people that supported you, your hometown folks, people at Ohio State and associated with it. That's their first salute to you.
Yep.
And good. Now in December in Las Vegas, I have to share that with a whole bunch of other inductees. So it's not. It's still it's going to be a great event, but it's not the same as at your home stadium football night and your team wins and all the pomp and circumstance. There's the people who watched you from day one. I had people coming up to me. I was a freshman with you. I mean, a cheerleader came up to me and said, Keith, you remember I was a cheerleader. We went to the Rose Bowl. So all kind of, people, student bodies from all decades of existence at Ohio State. I mean, like you mentioned, Archie Griffin presented me with the plaque last night. I grew up watching Archie Griffin play in the 70s.
You ever thought when you committed to Ohio State?
Someday
Archie Griffin would be presenting you a college football Hall of Fame plaque.
Right. I mean, that's who thinks of that. You don't. That's just after the fact. And so dreams and reality just comes true. So that just made last night so special. And I was like, don't y'all ruin this by losing this game.
That's the other thing I was worried about last night, especially as that fourth quarter was rolling.
10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, when I think back to the night, I was, saluted and confirmed into the Hall of Fame with the Ohio State fans. That's going to be just another memory that will always be special to me. The night that I was, inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame and acknowledged, by the Buckeye Nation and the Buckeye faithful. And another reason why a lot of people around the country hate Ohio State, because not that they don't love their current players and their future players and their past players, it just means a little bit more at Ohio State, because no matter where you go, I could have been in Atlanta last night at an Atlanta sports bar, and people would have gone, hey, that's Ohio State. You can't find Alabama sports bars here in Ohio. But any city, any state in America, you can go into a place and you're out of town for business. That's why. What's a Buckeye bar? There, I watch the game. Unfortunately, there's not Frickers all over the place, but the Frickers type restaurants in Arizona, California, Colorado, Buckeye Nation is there. So all of those folks who I didn't see or hurt, supported me, and it really is that extra rush of adrenaline, and that's what helped to get the team through last night.
Oh, yeah.
When they weren't playing the way you was always expecting, and hey, gosh, just do it. And they acknowledged it. They did, and some of the players, winked at me and waved at me while I was on the sidelines last night.
It's really special. Again, it's the Sunday Morning Tailgate Show live here from Frickers on 741 by the Dayton Mall. Myself, Justin Kinner, College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byars, fresh off his recognition at the Shoe last night in front of thousands and thousands. 100,000 Buckeye fans. Of course, yes, witnessing you be, recognized for your Hall of Fame induction, Keith, but of course, witnessing the Buckeyes, number 5 team in the country for now. We anticipate they'd move up 33-24, the final at the Shoe last night against Penn State. All right, speaking of that matchup, that was one of many big matchups last night or throughout the day in college football. What a weekend it was. And that's the final dress rehearsal before the first release of the college football playoff rankings this Tuesday night. That's what Keith and we're going to dive into that on the other side. We'll recap Ohio State's win against Penn State on the other side. Plus, we'll begin kind of looking ahead to what we think the poll is going to look like, at least the top 4 is how that's concerned this Tuesday night when it's released. Keith Byars, Justin Kinner, we'll be back in just a moment. Give Brandon Williams, who's running the phones back in the WING studios in Kettering. Again, we're in Miamisburg at Frickers on 741. Give Brandon a call, 518-1410, 937-518-1410. Give him a call, and he'll patch you through to us when we come back. Your thoughts, of course, on the Ohio State win over Penn State, thoughts on what the college football playoff rankings could look like, will the Bearcats be included, and if you want to give KB a shout out and a congratulations for last night, of course, that's always welcome on these airwaves. So we'll be back in a moment. More of the Sunday Morning Tailgate Show next.
You have empty office space to fill or home office to create. You know what you need. You know what you'd like. But you also have a pretty good idea after you've shopped around the usual places what you need and what you like might not happen. Well, then you haven't been to Charles Larrick's Warehouse Outlet. Nobody has their selection. Nobody has their discounts. And every week there's something new. If you need office furniture, Larrick's Warehouse Outlet can sell it to you for half the price and below manufacturer's selected prices. Half price and below on hundreds of items. Selection from budget to the best. Really, desks from $50 to $5,000. Filing cabinets from $25 to $500. Before you go anywhere else, do yourself a favor and come to Larrick's Warehouse Outlet. With 25,000 square feet of selection, you're not going to go anywhere else. Larrick's Warehouse Outlet at 23 McOil Avenue, Dayton. Open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. Larrick's, continuing the tradition.
Hello, I'm Clerk of Court Rob Scott, serving Kettering, Centerville, Moraine, and Washington Township. From October 18th to October 29th, you can come to Kettering Municipal Court and pay off half your fines and costs, and the other half will be waived. There is nothing to fear. Come pay off half your fee.
This is brought to you by Rob Scott, Clerk of Court.
In the Army National Guard, family means everything.
They really appreciate what she's done as a sister as well as a soldier and, supporting their country.
Our parents, they were really supportive that all 5 of us would join.
Family members that are soldiers in the Army National Guard inspire and influence, setting a path for others.
It's validating knowing that, I kind of did my part to make sure this is what they actually wanted and that they feel the same way I do. I'm really proud that we get to help shape the future, and I know that my sisters are going to be amazing soldiers.
Serving part-time in the Army National Guard instills pride that you and your family will share in.
A lot of pride, and they're just out there doing something every day and then serving their country as well.
I got my education because of the Guard. I got to travel a little bit and experience a whole different culture.
Visit nationalguard.com to learn more about part-time service. Sponsored by the Ohio Army National Guard. Aired by the Ohio Association of Broadcasters and this station.
We have essentially dropped $1 trillion of student loan debt onto the backs of hardworking American families,
affecting approximately 44 million Americans.
And the victims are 17 years old.
The choices that they made now own them, and they do not know what to do.
Is that the American dream?
Watch a new documentary from Ramsey Solutions, Borrowed Future, How Student Loans Are Killing the American Dream on Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, or Google Play.
D-Max, home of the Duramax diesel engine, is now hiring in Moraine and Brookville. To learn more about D-Max and all current openings, go to dmaxengines.com. That's dmaxengines.com. D-Max, your engine for success.
Call William Brockman and Sons Heating and Air Conditioning at 937-222-8638 for reliable Lennox products that can make the air in your home absolutely perfect. Ohio license number 14911.
We have essentially dropped $1 trillion of student loan debt onto the backs of hardworking American families.
Watch a new documentary from Ramsey Solutions, Borrowed Future, How Student Loans Are Killing the American Dream on Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, or Google Play.
Lowe's Provember event is back, and we're thanking pros like you all month long. So when you become a Pro Loyalty member, now through November 24th, you'll get a welcome kit via mail, Lowe's bucket included. It's all part of Provember, going on online and in stores. Lowe's, the new home for pros. New accounts only. More terms and conditions apply while supplies last. Visit Lowe's.com/ProLoyalty for details. U.S. only.
First off, congratulations, Keith, as an Ohio State fan. Dolphin fan doesn't get much better. Well deserved, you know what I mean?
Thank you.
But this is a Heisman Trophy run by Keith Byars.
I want to congratulate Mr. Byars on his nod to the Hall of Fame for college football.
He's running without a shoe with a touchdown.
Keith, man, you're awesome, dude. Represent the Gym City, man. I love it.
Congratulations to Dayton's own Keith Byars, the 26th Buckeye to be selected to the College Football Hall of Fame.
Truly an honor and a blessing and a privilege, you know, to be one of the ones that go into the Hall of Fame. And I've never been selfish to think it's all about me. No, it's about us. And the city of Dayton, Ohio, has been very, 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 good to me.
All sports. All the time. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
1, 2, 3.
WING 1410 Dayton.
Knock, knock. Trick or treat. Happy Halloween.
Dayton's ESPN Radio.
All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner, College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byars with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio. We are live at Frickers in Miamisburg, 741 by the Dayton Ball. I hope everyone's had a great weekend, and what a great weekend it was, especially in college football. We'll get to today's NFL slate of games coming up here just around the corner. A lot of big Week 8 games. Can't believe, by the way, with as much as we talk about the draft and as much as we talk about off-season moves and storylines, it's amazing to me that once the season gets here, in the blink of an eye, we're at the halfway point. Keith, it's Week 8 of the NFL season. We're already 1 week in. The first round of the high school football playoffs is officially in the books. The first playoff rankings come out. It feels like football has the shortest season because we spend so much time talking about all these off-season things. But then when the season gets here, it's gone in the blink of an eye. The time flies when you're having fun. You know the saying.
Yeah, it has the shortest season numerically, because they play the least amount of games, whereas in college.
Years.
And are you any good at it?
I have 3 leagues. In my first league, I'm 6-1. In my second league, I'm 6-1. And then I think the other league, I'm like 5 and. Let's see. In my other league, I am.
You know what? You're so good. You're winning so many games you can't even remember, Nikki. You're the best player I've ever heard. Come take over. Will you take over my team, Nikki? I guess that's a no. I can't afford him. What would you do for him here, Eric?
Yeah, I would go with Cortland Sutton here. I know since week 2, with Judy being out of the picture, Sutton has been a wide receiver 12 in fantasy scoring, averaging 6.2 catches, 87.5 receiving yards per game over that span. I do know Jerry Judy's coming back. I'm excited to see, what he can do in his return. He's looked good, in practice, et cetera, the past couple of weeks. But I think both of them can coexist against the Washington football team secondary. I'm not going to go into detail of the woes that they have defensively, but I do like Sutton here over Chase.
Hey, Nikki, where in New York are you? Because I want to make sure not to get into a gambling game against you.
Staten Island.
Staten Island. See, I can tell. You got to be careful when you're in Staten Island. You'll run into the Nickies of the world. Thank you, Nikki. Let's go to Ricky in Fordham. Ricky, do you go to Fordham?
Hey, guys. Nikki was a great call. Need some wide receiver help here. I got a pissed off Brandon Cooks.
It's the last day of October. So we got a lot of big games coming up. Look at Ohio State's schedule. They still have to play Michigan and Michigan State. That's going to be awesome. Penn State still has a game with Michigan and Michigan State. It's a lot of ebb and flow, it's going to happen in this month of November. And pretenders will be separated from the contenders, and we're going to see. I mean, it's the SEC, their scheduling isn't the same. Yeah, I thought for Alabama to have a bye week this late, after 7 games they had a bye week. I think that was it. Yeah, 7 weeks they had a bye week. That was a little too late. They should have had it between week 6 and 4.
Who gets to decide this? Does the school get to decide? The conference decide? Who decides the bye weeks? I'm not sure how that's scheduled. I mean, I know conference scheduling is more so within the conference.
That's a good question. I think overall it's the conference.
But they had that, they lose to Texas A&M. They and the score shows they blew out Tennessee. They pulled away from Tennessee. It didn't blow out Tennessee. They pulled away from Tennessee at the end. But you have those couple of bad stretches, and all of a sudden they're not playing this past week. I just think that's a horrible time to take a bye, especially the last Sunday before the first playoff rankings come out.
You remember when Ohio State buys came? They were looking really good.
Yep.
And then they got to take a bye week. Yeah. We don't want a bye week now, but it happens. But, with the future scheduling, that who you play, you just don't know all the time when you're going to play. You have somewhere to those dates, so it's hard to figure out when the bye week, will be. And so I think it's a combination between the schools and the conference and the Big Ten. But I think overall the Big Ten Conference, they dictate when your bye could be, because they don't say, they let you schedule whoever you want to schedule, but when you're going to have the opportunity to play them, is a little different. If you look at, I'm just pulling the schedule real quick, the Ohio State schedule for next year. Wow, they play Notre Dame, and then when is their bye week schedule going to be? 3-10, 17.
It's usually in the month of October.
It's going to be in October after with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th game. So they got a late one next year. That's unusual, for them, to have that bye week then, but it happens.
Justin Kinner, Keith Byars with you here on this Sunday morning live from Frickers on 741. Getting some feedback that the internet feed is going in and out. Yes, that is something we are dealing with. We still are live on the air, though, but if you want to give us a call, you could do so now, 518-1410. But let's get back into this. So a team that I find very interesting right now, and I can't believe with all the great games yesterday, I'm just, we'll get to this team in a moment because I don't want to talk about Wake Forest right now after Ohio State. That would be wrong.
We'll talk about Tim Duncan.
That would be, exactly. But Ohio State's win over Penn State last night was a big one just for a lot of reasons. For one, that Penn State team's being viewed as, a 2-loss team. You saw last night when their quarterback's healthy, when they have their full roster, that's a top team in the country. The 2 losses that they have had, by the way, that defense is legitimate. Penn State's defense, I put that right up there with some of the top defenses in the country, like Georgia's, and other people have talking about Georgia's defense so much. I know that Penn State's 2 losses, now 3. But that loss last night, I mean, Penn State, that was a tough game. That was not an easy game. There's no such thing as easy games, don't get me wrong. But Penn State, of course, is being looked at in the light of, they're a 3-loss. They're not that good. That's a very good football team when healthy. They were the team that everyone thought was going to be, was going to come down to either Penn State or Ohio State when it came down to the very end of who was going to be in the Big Ten title game. Ohio State came out on top yesterday. What did you see again? Now, it wasn't a perfect game by Ohio State, but when you face an opponent like a healthy Penn State, it's not going to look as clean as when you're playing Army or you're playing Tulane. So I don't know.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Sean Clifford got hurt against Iowa.
Yes.
He didn't finish that game. And he was banged up last week, against Illinois. Mm-hmm. And, he was, somewhat healthy. And that's the hardest, one of the hardest things for a college coach to do is to keep your team focused on the task at hand and don't fall into trap games. And, last week we said Penn State got caught in a trap against Illinois looking ahead to Ohio State. And then they got into that quirky overtime period of 9 overtimes with 2-point play. And Illinois ran for 350 yards on the ground against Penn State. We're like, if Illinois did that, what is Ohio State going to do? But those guys have pride. They come to ready to play. And they was ready for us. And you've heard me say it many times on the show, there's maybe one game a year at Ohio State, 2 at the most, teams on their schedule where it's not how they play, it's how we play. Mm-hmm. And yesterday was one of those 2 games where you're beatable because Penn State has a long, storied history, as Ohio State, and the other is Michigan. Even though we should still smash Michigan. But that's a traditional rival game, so you always expect that in a rival. But going into yesterday's game, I felt that if Penn State played their A game and we played our A game, we could win by 10-plus points. Yesterday, Penn State had their A game. Ohio State had their B-plus game. Not totally up to par, with Ohio State. And I think one thing that gets overlooked, and we haven't said it a lot on this show, there's been reason to, is that our defense stepped up yesterday. Yes, they gave a 360-yard pass and, the Sean Clifford, but they took away the run. They didn't give them run and the pass. And I think this is the 6th time this year in 8 games we scored on defense. Yeah,
the big fella.
That is there's something that gets lost in the sauce. I mean, when you're getting to criticizing our defense, and a lot of criticism has been justified. Don't get me wrong, but we've never had a defense at Ohio State score 6 times in one season and counting.
And this is a down defensive year with the eyes of most. And look at what they're doing.
Those plays get to be contagious. Just like last year, we don't never get enough interceptions. We're not getting turnovers. Other teams get turnovers. We don't get them. We don't get the tip pass and the loose ball on the ground. That stuff goes in cycles. And so once you have one, it gets to be contagious. And every week, seems this week, somebody on Ohio State's defense is picking up a fumble, getting an interception, and scoring with it. Except for yesterday when the defensive back, Cameron Brown, he forgot where the end zone was. Nice interception in the 4th quarter. Where was he running to? He was running east to west. I'm like, son, the end zone is that away. Where are you running? Why are you running away from the end zone? I'm sure he's going to hear about that all week in practice and in the coaches' meeting today.
You can make those mistakes in wins.
Yeah.
You can't make that mistake in a loss.
But
and then, those look ugly, right?
They stepped up.
Yep.
I've said it many times. I will continue to say it. Football is the greatest team sport there is. You cannot have individual success without the other. And so when one side, it takes 3 phases to win: the offense, defense, and special teams. Our offense they won't get a grade A in my play, my grading of the coach of the team tomorrow. So the offense didn't have an A performance. Defense didn't have an A performance. They had a good enough performance. The offense had a good enough performance, and the special teams, they get an A. And I'll break that down later on my show. But the defense, they stepped up when we had. They took away the run, made them one-dimensional, and that one-dimensional was almost enough to get us beat. But they did come up with 3 turnovers on defense. One of them was a scoop and score. That was huge. So defense gets credit, and it was a total team victory, last night. So it's not like we won, but I've never seen an ugly victory It wasn't as pretty as we would like, but it certainly wasn't ugly like some of the things you'll hear over the different talking heads over the next 24 to 48 hours.
And keep in mind, you're allowed to have an ugly win against a quality opponent. Like, it's not as if this Penn State team, and people get so caught up in the 3 losses. I'm not calling it a win. It just wasn't as beautiful as we would like. No, but you're like me when you make those references. It's in reference to the national perception or what the popular perception is going to be. So I know what you're saying. I don't think that's an ugly win against Penn State. That's a good Penn State team. We knew about that defense. And you
think Penn State will lose another game this year?
If they're healthy like that, no.
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday is one of those where if they win the last 2 weeks the way they're supposed to, or if they win last week, like they lost to Iowa. Okay, you lost to a top 5 Iowa team.
Iowa.
That's going to happen. That wasn't a bad loss to me. I didn't overreact to that loss. I was okay. They turn around and beat Ohio State. They're right back in the driver's seat for them. And if they lose to Ohio State like they did last night, if that's only their second loss, Penn State still, I'm looking at them as a top 12 team at that moment in time. It's going to be tough now with 3 losses. But the point is it's not like you're beating these unranked teams and you need a full 4 quarters to beat these bad teams. You needed 4 quarters to beat a very good Penn State team. And what we've seen the last 2 weeks out of Penn State, you called it the trap game. I love James Franklin to a certain extent, but I'm amazed that, you hear programs like UCLA or not UCLA, I'm sorry, USC and LSU, that they want coaches who, they're tired of winning a lot of games and not winning the ones that count. And I'm like, that's exactly what James Franklin is. James Franklin is notorious for winning a ton of games at Penn State. He recruits with the best of them at Penn State. But they always lose the games that they should. Michigan's the same way. They win a lot of games, but they don't win the ones that count. And that's what drives me nuts. Not that I wanted them to beat Ohio State, but it's like Ohio State's a given. But to lose last week to Illinois, you shouldn't lose to Illinois. You shouldn't lose to those programs. Not saying it's not allowed, but I mean, you
he's not allowed to lose to them.
Yeah. It's just when you're trying to prove to everyone that you're a top 4 team in the country, you can't just do those. And that's the same for Ohio State, but their one loss is against a top Oregon team as far as it's all concerned. College football playoff rankings before we transition to the NFL.
But real quick about Penn State. Going into last week, they was in the same driver's seat as Ohio State, like you mentioned.
Yep.
They controlled their destiny. If Penn State goes 12-1 and win the Big Ten championship, they're going to, a playoff team. And they lost sight of that goal last week against Illinois, and they're trying to get it back to a degree last night against Ohio State, but it just wasn't happening. Now they're relegated to fighting for 3rd place in the Big Ten.
Michigan State, another great game. I mean, that was just blow for blow, just back and forth. I'm not asking you to say anything nice about that team up north, but how did that matchup represent the Big Ten yesterday? Ohio State's going to have their hands full with both of them. People piled on that team up north, and rightfully so. It's another rivalry game, another top 10 loss for Jim Harbaugh, but overall, both of those programs looked like the real deal yesterday, and that's all you can ask for. Great representation of the Big Ten. Again, not making you say anything nice about that team up north by any means.
No, I can't say anything. I'm about to sneeze.
Yeah, I was going to say you're allergic to that.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
But here again is the national perception when you have the loudest microphone, like certain networks have. They equate a big win by an SEC school. That's how you're supposed to win nationwide. The Big Ten has the same type of win in the Big Ten. Oh, that's a Big Ten win. That's an ACC win. No, that's a Big 12 win. No defense. That's the perception. But when you get it, okay.
Wash you.
Excuse me, the pepper went up my nose. But yesterday we had a number, 8 and a 6 team in the country, 2 top 10 teams battling, taking, haymakers at each other. One team goes up by 2 scores. You think it's about over? It's going to know we're back in it. Big plays, converting 4th downs, solid defense, and a non-traditional offense. Okay, everybody, they didn't come out and spread offense the whole time. They got 2 backs, and they're just pounding the ball. Good, solid defense, good running game. And the running back has got a chance to be in the Heisman Trophy, room. Don't know if he's going to win it. We're still too far away. But Walker, 5 touchdowns, 200-plus yards. That's a performance. If he was in the SEC, everybody be talking about like he's the next Derrick Henry. But in the Big Ten, he's not getting that degree of respect, and we got to tackle him in about 3 weeks. It's going to be tough on the Buckeyes. That was a great game. I mean, a good old school, 2 heavyweights, in-state rivals battling it out. I enjoyed watching that game. I enjoyed even more the final results of the team up north from, losing. I'm a Mel Tucker fan. I like Mel.
Oh, yeah.
An awful lot. He does, underrated, head coach. He's finally got some talent. and they're going to even get even more talent. Everybody can't go to Ohio State, so he's going to chip away at some more pieces in Michigan State. Yeah, I'm expecting them to it's going to be a battle. I wouldn't be surprised if they're 10-0 when they play Ohio State. I really wouldn't be surprised.
And that's a good thing
if
for
they
Ohio
don't
State.
fall into a trap. They're usually the other team falling into their trap. Now, huge win, against Michigan yesterday. Now, Mel Tucker's job really got to work. He got to work even harder to help these guys forget about that. Let's turn the page and get ready for this game this Saturday. I'm not sure who they play yet this Saturday. I don't recall. But they can't have it. That would take away from that big win they had yesterday if they come out next week and fall in their face and lose a game they're supposed to win. That would not be good, at all for Michigan State. But it's good overall for the Big Ten. I think no matter who lost that game, and especially if you've seen that game, both those teams are top 10 teams. So that's the closest I can come to a compliment for the team up north. They're both, a top 10 teams.
Yeah, Michigan State at Purdue next Saturday. Then they're at home versus Maryland.
We don't know what Purdue's going to do. They haven't played since they whipped up on Iowa.
And Iowa's and Purdue's that program that, throw records out the window. Their favorite role in the Big Ten is spoiler. They did it against Ohio State a few years ago. They did it against Iowa earlier this season. Michigan State coming up. They would love to put another feather in their cap as far as being that team. But yeah, they're at Penn State. Talking about Michigan State here, they're at Penn State next week. Then at home against Maryland on the 19th, and then they close out the season. Keith, if Michigan State, this is a legitimate playoff contender because if they are in the Big Ten title game, that means they would have beaten Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. And they have that's an impressive finish that they have down the stretch. They're going to have a chance to prove it. I thought they proved it yesterday that they're a force to be reckoned with. Let's be honest.
There'll be no denying that happens.
No one was giving Michigan State a lot of credit. I think people were starting to believe in that team up north a little bit, but they weren't giving the same respect to Michigan State. Now after yesterday, it's like, oh man, we have to. Of course we talk about them regularly, the Big Ten, but like these national pundits, we need. I think they are officially at the table when it comes to the playoffs. Speaking of the playoff, the first poll comes out on Tuesday. We always release your top 10 poll tomorrow, but
I'll give you a couple of hints.
In the poll that comes out on Tuesday. So I just believe, and you know me, I always irritate Buckeye fans because I don't like being a Buckeye homer, but I believe that they are the number 2 team in the country. I don't care what anybody says. That's probably the most homer thing that people will ever say comes out of my mouth because I'm always trying to be realistic. But outside of Georgia, the only other team that's playing as dominant football right now is Ohio State. And I know they have the one loss, but you got to consider who they lose to. I think that matters. It's not an unranked team. Oregon is right now still in the mix for the playoff conversation as well. I like Georgia. I like Ohio State at 1 and 2, and then I think it's going to be it's just going to be a jumbled list of resumes that you could pick from for 3 and 4. Where are you at with the first poll coming out on Tuesday?
That's going to be. It'll be talkative. Yeah, and when you're talking the first poll, I haven't done all the research. The first poll that comes out, how many of those 4 teams are in there at the last poll? And I think no more than 2, maybe 3 of the 4, but I think it's 2 are still there in the final poll of that season. I think one year, where'd Dak Prescott go to college at? Ole Miss?
Mississippi State? Was it Mississippi State?
They were in the top 4 one year. When the first poll came out, when Dak was still in school, I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? TCU, was there the year Ohio State went. So the first poll, it's a talkative point, but it doesn't matter. It's just like when you poll in these elections. The only poll that matters is the one on game day. So the main poll is going to matter is on the last poll. But I'm interested to see where you're starting. And that's what I'm going to get the most out of.
Yeah, where you're starting is what you're seeing is
that
room of human beings that makes these decisions, the committee. And I emphasize human beings because it's all subjective, right? Like there's not a calculation. You need to win this many games to be in the playoff conference. You need to score this many points. It's all what the committee feels is right and wrong. The Bearcats, to me, and I've said this in the past, that I think that the committee fears the Bearcats because of this reason right here. You can't put the Bearcats in the first playoff ranking because what's going to happen is if you ignore the fact that their schedule, I mean, I saw Heather Dinich tweeted out that if you look at all the metrics, Cincinnati would be the weakest top 4 team in the playoff ranking since it started from a resume standpoint. She didn't say they're a bad team, and that's what Bearcat fans need to understand. No one's saying you have a bad football team. If you want to, sit at the table with the playoff contenders, you have to learn how to take that criticism. No one's saying you're a bad football team. Talk about how does you stack up against those top 4 resume-wise. If you put them in the first playoff poll, Keith, and they win out, and then that last poll that comes out, now you decide, oh, you know what? The resume is not as impressive as these others. Well, it hasn't been as impressive as the others since the beginning. So which is why I feel like they're going to be number 5 because the committee wants another team in front of them to lose to justify moving them up. Because once you put them in, they've never taken an undefeated team out of the playoff rankings, out of the top 4. So that's why I feel like the committee is going to give themselves a buffer. They're going to give themselves a buffer. They're going to put the Bearcats at 5. That's still, they're going to say, hey, we're giving you the respect. You're right there. But I think it's one of those things where the committee knows you can't put them in this week and say, oh, their resume is not as good as others, but we believe they're good. And then in the last, they got away with it because
they didn't play a conference championship game.
But they clearly showed that wasn't a bother to them when they let Notre Dame in years ago. So it's like they move it around. That's why I say when you talk about human beings, it is important to be in the first one. More so for the Bearcats. You're right. Ohio State, they were 14th in the first poll back in 2014 and came all the way to win the national championship. For them, they're going to have plenty of opportunities. The Bearcats are running out of opportunities, and I feel like it's hard to expect him to do that. Yes, it is. When Ohio State plays Maryland and Rutgers, you may not hold them to that standard, but whether we like it or not, the committee does. The committee says, well, how come you're not blowing out Maryland? How come you're not blowing out Rutgers? That's what they do. So regardless of what we think is right or wrong, we have to view them on how the committee is going to judge them, and I think that's what's going to be interesting to see what they do on Tuesday night.
I mean, you look at Akron. Yep. Akron was, basically on the same playing field as Cincinnati. If Akron was undefeated in the MAC, they would say, man, we deserve and we beat a Big Ten team. Say they beat, Purdue or Northwestern. They would be hollering, why aren't we in the playoffs?
Bowling Green, if they were undefeated, they beat Minnesota earlier in the year.
Yes,
remember that?
Exactly. They're saying, well, you're not running the same gauntlet week in and week out of these teams in the Big Ten and the SEC, and the Pac-12. That's why. And it's a bad system. I hate to I'm stuttering to even get it out, but that's where we are. But I'm not going to penalize Cincinnati yet. With my list, that's why another reason why I say the teams, you don't rank them till after halfway the season, to the midpoint of the season. That way you're not tainted. I'm looking back. My first poll I did this season was after week 6. And Oregon was number 10 on my list at that time because they beat Ohio State. And a few weeks later, they lose to Stanford. Mm-hmm. Hence, it doesn't help or hurt either team as far as when the rankings go. You still have some other games to play. Now they played 6 games. Oregon was number 10 team in the country, according to me. Georgia was number 1. They've been there for quite some time now. Iowa was number 2, then they lost. So, okay, they didn't hang on to it. So they dropped. Then so Cincinnati's been number 2. I had Cincinnati, they had a big win, at the time, a big win over Indiana. And then they went to week 3, I believe it was, and they beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame hasn't lost anyone else. So now you're telling Notre Dame, is there a path for Notre Dame to get to the conference championship? If they go 11-1, because they don't play and their only loss was to an undefeated Cincinnati team.
Yep.
They're going to have an argument. Whether it's going to be a good argument, they'll have an argument of crying because of the way you value these teams. In my first poll, I had Ohio State at 5. And when the first polls came out, Alabama was 8 because they had just lost. They were the number 1 team in the country up in, for the first 5 weeks of the season. They lose to A&M, who was a 2-loss team on, unranked 2-loss team. So Alabama has to drop from 1. I was being nice when I dropped them 7 spots to 7. When Ohio State lost to Oregon, Ohio State was the number 3 team in the country. Oregon was number 11. They dropped, some people even dropped Ohio State out of the top 10 to losing to the 11th rated team in the country after only 1 week.
Remember, they beat Tulsa, they beat Akron, they still dropped. Remember, they were winning and dropping at the same time. So,
but now there's a big argument. Now, Alabama had a bye week yesterday. I think Alabama's probably number 2 team in the country.
No, and that's why I said it has to be Ohio State.
Some of the talking heads, I'm like, they didn't even play and they're still getting good.
It has to be Ohio. That's why I said, the reason I said Ohio State is because if you're going to actually put Bama back in that conversation, then Ohio State needs to be there.
So Ohio State has to be ranked on Bama because their loss was a better loss.
Yeah.
This is Alabama's loss.
That's why I'm so adamant about Ohio. I'm not being a homer. I'm saying Ohio State has to be at 2 because I'm playing by the committee's rules when it comes to how they're going to sit there and try to feed us the BS that is Alabama. And I'm not saying Alabama's bad by any means, but you're not going to tell me that Alabama's more deserving of being ranked higher than Ohio State just because they lost to Texas A&M.
Now they go with what they did last year, 2 years ago. And that doesn't matter. We're talking about right now, today.
All right, folks, I tell you what, we're going to step away for a few moments. We just found out College Game Day will be in Cincinnati next week for the Bearcats showdown with Tulsa. So that's, again, a lot of eyes, a lot of attention on the Bearcats. This is interesting. Look, I'm not anti-Bearcats, but I am all about this discussion. 518-1410. We'll get into some NFL stuff on the other side as well. Keith Byars, Justin Kinner. We'll be back live from Frickers when we come back.
But we have a truck leaving with a big order on Tuesday. Tina's floor manager retired, leaving her tortilla factory flat out.
What do you mean she's on a silent retreat?
She must fill the role and all those orders.
I'll oversee production.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Schedule virtual interviews and talk to candidates right from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Well, Jason, I've got to tell you, you're pretty much everything this company is looking for in an entry-level candidate.
Great.
Your resume isn't quite what we're used to, but you've got a fantastic work ethic.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed by how you carry yourself.
So, should we talk about the job?
What? The job? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have no way of recruiting or even meeting you. This interview didn't happen.
It may sound ridiculous, and that's because it kind of is. There's a huge pool of talent your company is missing out on. Meet the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Man, we really could have used him.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Attention Class A CDL drivers. Looking to be more than just a number? Yoel Transportation in Dayton is looking for drivers with at least 1.5 years experience. Yoel has open positions for no-tarp flatbed drivers and no-touch regional or local van drivers. Yoel is ELD compliant and offers 401k with match, medical, dental, vision, holiday pay, vacation, safety bonuses, and now has a rider policy. Call Rick or Joe at 937-294-5933 and ask about the $5,000 sign-on bonus today.
Do you have an open court case? Your Montgomery County Clerk of Courts is now offering text message and email notifications to help keep you informed of your upcoming court dates. For more information, visit courthouse2u.com. Keeping up with your court dates isn't always easy, but it is important. This service is provided for cases in Montgomery County Municipal Court. Visit courthouse2u.com to sign up today. Brought to you by Clerk of Courts, Mike Foley.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzzed driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls calls it drunk. You can kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says I'm a catch more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Save big money on your next project with 11% off everything at Menards. Give your walls a new look with Zinsser Smart Coat. It's an advanced paint and primer in one with ultra smooth coverage, superior adhesion, and exceptional washability. Interior flat paint is 11% off. Get 11% off everything now at Menards. Good through November 6th. Savings are a mail-in rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Save big money at Menards.
Hustler Turf commercial mowers are built tough to work hard. Whether you need a fleet of mowers or are a one-man show, you don't have time for downtime. Hustler mowers are over-engineered, overbuilt, and tested well beyond what is required with the most complete lineup in the industry, including exclusives like a 104-inch Super 104, an 88-inch stand-on, and industry-leading warranties. Hustler mowers are ready to handle what you throw at them. Build your fleet to be reliable and versatile with Hustler Turf. Visit Small Engine Service Pros in New Carlisle today.
Football fans, the Sunday morning tailgate show is officially back. Every Sunday morning starting at 11:30 a.m., College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byars and Justin Kinner will be live at Frickers on 741 by the Dayton Mall. The guys will recap the biggest games from college football Saturday, including your Ohio State Buckeyes. The guys will also get you set up for the day's biggest NFL matchups, featuring your Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals, and more. It's the Sunday morning tailgate show, live from Frickers on 741, Sunday mornings at 11:30 on 1410 ESPN Radio. All sports, all the time. This is 1410 ESPN Radio.
Sometimes I get a feeling.
Live from Frickers on 741 behind the Dayton Mall, live here in Miamisburg. Just so you guys know, we're here every Sunday morning, all the way through Super Bowl Sunday. So make sure when you're making your plans for where you want to watch the big week of NFL games every Sunday, make Frickers your stop and make the one here in Miamisburg.
Fan bases go, you know what? You know who we're getting? We're getting Pete Carroll. No, you're not. You're not getting them. They're going to stay in the NFL.
It's a fair point, but I do think Tomlin could break the internet, and I tweeted this, if he the next day took one of the jobs. Like after that emphatic
everywhere. No, there's just a good football game to watch. But a lot of big games today, Keith, including the Browns and the Bengals, both in action. And right now, both teams looking for wins today to set up a first-place showdown a week from today. This place is going to be crazy next week. You got the Browns, you got the Bengals. Browns have the Steelers today. They're 4.5-point favorites against Pittsburgh. And then you have the Bengals, who are 11-point favorites. The first time in almost a decade that they've been a double-digit favorite. I mean, it's been a long time since they've been a double-digit favorite against an opponent, which is why you're starting to see a lot of your eliminator picks come in. Your knockout picks come in for them. I mean, just the NFL shaping up for a fun race to the finish line. Here, the Bengals and Browns. We're always talking Browns and Bengals. We're usually talking about how bad they are. This year, they win today. It's a battle for first place in Week 9 next week. How about that?
Ooh. That's what we envision to be someday. You know, hey, we want. Why does the division championship have to go to Pennsylvania or Maryland? Why can't it stay in Ohio? Mm-hmm. So, in the Battle of Ohio, that's what it's all about. So I would love for that to happen. It's shaping up that way. Let's see if the shape, can continue on that path. I don't see no reason why it should not.
And that's what's going to make it fun again. But the Browns and Steelers coming up later on today. They get Baker Mayfield back. They get Nick Chubb back. That offensive line's back now. You have Jarvis. You still have a lot of your weapons. And look, I'm not making no excuse about injuries. In the last couple of weeks, I said that's not an excuse. That was the reality. The reality is the expectations for the Browns when you have a complete healthy roster is they're right up there with some of the other top Super Bowl contenders. At least that was the expectations. Doesn't mean that they truly are that, but the expectations based on the roster are that. If you don't have those key pieces on the roster that made you that Super Bowl contender, it's not that difficult to understand why those teams kind of don't play to the level of what you expect. I kept saying all week, you have first string expectations for the second string. I said you could want them.
You're one snap away from being first string when you're second team.
And no, but I always say, Keith, too, by the way, in the past, like I remember like last year, the Browns had their whole wide receiving core out during COVID, but they still had their tight ends, they still had their run game, they still had their OL. I never made excuses for that. I said, no, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why the Browns are good last year. The receivers are one of the reasons, but they're not the only reason. But when your two best running backs are out, your whole line's out, your entire wide receiving core is out against the Cardinals, and people are sitting there saying, I knew the Browns were fake. I'm like, that's why I was getting so angry and defensive. I'm like, hold up, time out. You can't say I knew the Browns were fake when the entire roster was not playing, and it wasn't just one position group who was out. There was no Nick Chubb, no Kareem Hunt. There was, you know what I'm saying? So that's where I was getting at with that. But they got those guys back today. If they lose to Pittsburgh,
last Thursday, that was a win by the team. You know, not just the receivers. I mean,
but who are they playing? Again, but like
they got
who you play matters.
It does.
And they had when you got an undefeated Cardinals team at that time, and then the bad Broncos team. I mean, luckily they did run into the Broncos.
Well, they were 500.
Well, the Broncos were just as beat up as the Browns, I guess is what I'm saying. It was just it was basically a preseason game. Is basically what it ran into. But hey, a win's a win. Everyone was saying, for Browns fans, upset about the fact that they had that Thursday night game all while being injured. I said, actually, it's kind of a blessing in disguise because of who you played that night. You played a team that was equally as banged up as you. Gave you an opportunity to win that game while resting a bunch of guys and getting healthy. Now you get pretty much your whole team back at home today with the Pittsburgh team that, although it's not your old Pittsburgh team, well, they're the old Pittsburgh team. They're an old Pittsburgh Steelers team now. You know, they're in good shape.
That quarterback.
Yep, they're in good. You know, the Browns are in good shape today, but no win is going to be handed to them. I mean, Pittsburgh, hard-hitting team. Browns are still banged up to a certain extent, and they know Pittsburgh's coming for them.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there was a time it's been a long time, mid to late 80s, early 90s, when the Browns were thumping the Steelers consistently. And those generation of kids probably don't even remember that.
The Bernie years?
The Bernie years,
yeah.
The Kozar years. And so now that should start happening all over again. It started last year with the Browns winning 2 out of 3 against Pittsburgh and one big one of those 2 in the playoff game. So that counts double, you know. So it should be no surprise, you know, when they play Pittsburgh, and we're expecting Cleveland to win. I'm expecting them to win. I don't care who's quarterback and I'm expecting Cleveland to win. That should be the expectation level, because when the shoe's on the other foot, when the Steelers used to play the Browns, it's the Browns. Those 2 wins right there. We're supposed to win those 2. The Bengals, we should have 4 wins minimum when they start, you know, in the preseason, and then they go out there and do it. And so when the Browns used to play the Steelers, you know, it used to be the same way when I was in the NFCs, when I was at the Eagles, we used to play the Giants. You know, we just knew we were going to win, no matter how good they were. You know, and so, and Buddy Ryan used to say, they know we're going to win. We know we're going to win. They just don't know how we're. And that's how it was for many years with Pittsburgh over the Browns. Now the Browns had to change that narrative. We know we're going to beat you, Pittsburgh. You know we're going to beat you. You just don't know how we're going to beat you. But at the end of this game, at the 60 minutes, we're going to have a W. And they start to believe that, and it happens. And it was that way on both sides of the locker room. Mm-hmm. We felt we was going to win, and the Giants like, man, how are these guys beating us? Because we would expect, you know, every time they beat us in a different way, you know, and it just happened, you know. And so that's where the Browns need to get that perception over the, you know, I think they over the hump. Now stay over the hump, you know, the mental hump. You know, the Steelers, and we can't beat these Steelers. They is no matter who they throw out here. It could be week 16 and they got nothing to play for. Yeah, they still beat us. But now Cleveland changed that narrative right now. And today will be that statement. You know, right now, Ben Roethlisberger's career has 1 foot in the grave. Go on and kick him in his career. Not physically. I'm talking metaphorically, guys. I'm talking about he's 39 years old. Treat him as such. Treat him. He's not 29 no more. They might as well bring the microphones out, trying to announce your retirement into this season, man. Do him that way. It's over.
Yeah, because the
Don't
Steelers
be intimidated by him no more.
They smell blood in the water with Baker. They know that shoulder's not 100%. That defense, they know where they're going for. They're not going to say that publicly and say. And by the way, that doesn't make the majority team. That makes them a smart team. I mean, it's football, Keith. I mean, when teams do, you were banged up. Did you notice they started going at your injury a little bit? So yeah, that's called football. People like to paint this picture.
You got a defensive back with a sore ankle. Let's take him deep.
Yep.
Let's make a cut. You try to expose it.
So that's just the nature of it. So, but no, I'm excited for that matchup coming up here later on today. Again, the Browns win. They'd improved to 5-3 and set up a huge showdown with the Bengals a week from today, which is something we did not think we would be saying coming into the year. The Bengals, 11.5-point favorites. They have the Jets coming up at 1 o'clock to kick off on CBS, Keith. Right now, this is, and I said this earlier in the week, you can look at this as, okay, the Bengals have the Jets and they're at the Jets and you have to respect the Jets because it's an opponent in the NFL and you just have to. You can't overlook any opponent. But honestly, this really does come down to the expectations for the Bengals have changed. And does that change your preparation? Does that change your mindset? Are you getting too cocky? Are you getting too comfortable? You're taking your foot off the gas a bit. Is the season coming to you a little bit easy? And if it is, it's because the hard work you put in to try to get rid of the stigma of the 6 wins in 2 years, that's what has been driving you. If you forget that, if you forget that motivation, if you forget what's been driving you and you start buying into the press clippings, you start buying into now the national media saying the Bengals are for real, they're here. If you start buying into that and that takes the foot off the pedal just a slight bit starting Monday at practice, you've already gotten worse. So that's what I'm curious about today. I know the Bengals are better than the Jets. I've picked them to lose the last couple of weeks. I'm not picking them to lose today. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I picked them in my knockout league. But it's really going to come down to the Bengals versus the Bengals today, Keith, more than it is the Bengals versus the Jets. Do you agree?
I agree. I mean, it should go back to, the old Bonnie Raitt show. I love Bonnie Raitt. She has a song called "Let's Give Them Something to Talk About." That's what the Bengals thought. Let's give them something to talk about.
Now I know what you're talking about. That's why I started laughing late. It was delayed.
Bonnie Raitt.
I was like, sure, sounds good. I'm sure some people know what you're talking about.
I know this. I got to see. I know a lot of pictures. I didn't think y'all saw a Bonnie Raitt reference coming on the show today. But that's the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's give them something to talk about. They've been talking about us so bad for so long. Let's give them something to talk about. Let's talk about love. Let's talk about the love of the Cincinnati Bengals. So let's see if they can go do that today.
Absolutely. Joe Burrow, again, has been lights out, as has, Jamar Chase. Keith, he hasn't won anything yet. Jamar Chase hasn't done it. 7 games into his career. But, look, and I'm the known Bengals hater in this city, right? I've never seen a rookie come in like him and do what he's doing. Justin Jefferson was a really good rookie wide receiver last year.
Isaac Curtis had a pretty special year when he was a rookie with the Bengals.
But this offense has opened up. The offensive line is slightly better, not much. The run game's slightly better, not much. The only thing that has technically really opened up, Burrow's numbers aren't drastically different than last year. The one element that has drastically taken them to that next level has been Jamar Chase. And you know how adamant I was against them drafting him that night on draft night. You saw the meltdown I had when they actually followed through with it. At the end of the day, it's a situation where I'm looking at that. I'm like, I've never seen a rookie, not a player. It's one thing to go get a free agent, top star in the league to turn your franchise around, but to draft a rookie to have that immediate impact, it's only 7 games in. But, how impressive you've been with the rookie.
But we were, sometimes we get misjudged for that. We knew Jamar Chase was a good pick. We just didn't like the priorities. Some better pick out there for what the Cincinnati Bengals needed at the time. The only time, you don't judge a draft after 8 weeks of the NFL season. You judge a draft after 2 to 3 years. And at the time, you need this lineman. You need a lineman. And, not that we don't like, Chase. He's just very special. But there's been another Chase coming out next year and the year after that and the year after that. But he's here now. That's water under the bridge. You're happy. And he's having a tremendous year, and I want him to continue it.
All right. We'll give you our picks. We'll give you our picks to some of the biggest games remaining in Week 8 when we come back. More of the Sunday Morning Tailgate Show live from Frickers next.
Excuse me. I know you have a 9 o'clock, so I'll keep this short. I'm the business suit in the back of your closet. You wore me nearly every day before your office went, quote, casual. I used to be the CEO of your closet. Now I'm just that one intern no one ever talks to. I always thought you'd circle back with me, get granular, keep me in the pipeline. But nada, nothing. Don't you remember the McKittrick presentation? You spilled coffee on me and I still looked amazing during the breakout talkback Q&A. So I think it's time for me to move on. I've got a great resume and I absolutely crush it in interviews, okay? Let's make this a clean break. Shift the paradigm. The only thing I ask is that you think outside the box here and do this. Take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create new jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff. Create jobs. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Well, Jason, I've got to tell you, you're pretty much everything this company is looking for in an entry-level candidate.
Great.
Your resume isn't quite what we're used to, but you've got a fantastic work ethic.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed by how you carry yourself.
So, should we talk about the job?
What? The job? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have no way of recruiting or even meeting you. This interview didn't happen.
It may sound ridiculous, and that's because it kind of is.